Hey everyone, Matt here from Doogs Models. So today I've been working on a review of Italeri's new Mirage IIIC for large-scale modeler. And I thought, hey, I've got a bunch of pictures and I've got a bunch of words, and maybe it could be interesting to put those to video and do a bit of a slideshow review kind of thing. Every now and then, certain subjects just seem to line up for a lot of attention. Sometimes it's Hollywood making several volcano-centric movies. Sometimes it's HK Models and Tamiya, both releasing 132nd mosquitoes within months of each other. Right now, it definitely seems like the Mirage 3 is firmly in the crosshairs of more than one manufacturer. Kinetics just released a new tool, Mirage 3E in 1/48. They've been following that up with a few different versions. I believe they've announced a 1/32nd scale version as well. And I think Kitty Hawk or Kinetic or someone else was planning their own 1/32nd Mirage 3C. But it seems like Italeri may have come in and stolen their thunder. It's honestly tough for me to imagine Italeri stealing anyone's thunder. Italeri, to me, has always kind of floundered somewhere in the middle towards the back of the pack. You know, they're one of those manufacturers where if it fits, it needs to be added to every nice thing you might say about them. But if my current experience with their F-104 is anything to go by, Italeri, kind of like Airfix and Academy, has recognized the need to step up their game with better detail and kits that actually kind of fit. So if we look at SPRUE A, this is the big one. This one contains the two fuselage halves, the nose gear bay, the intake trunks, the main landing gear struts, and most of the cockpit. Detail all around is actually quite good, and a definite step up from the 104. And the cockpit in particular is quite striking and certainly passable for a 1/32nd scale jet. Even the seats, they have texture on the cushions. The IP combing is suitably busy with wiring. Now, this stuff isn't quite as finely detailed as what resin would be able to represent, but for injection molded plastic, and especially for one of those manufacturers of lower expectations like Italeri, this is pretty damn commendable. I mean, the main gear struts, too, they're fantastic. They're definitely a step up from the 104, and honestly, they're some of the better gear struts I've seen on any aircraft in 1/32nd scale. So, if like me, you read the name Italeri and you kind of cringe thinking about soft detail and flash, you can put your fears to rest with this one. This kit has to be, I would say, probably the best they've done to date in terms of capturing that fine detail. Moving on to SPRUE B, this sprue contains the lower fuselage, which is a pretty questionable engineering choice to me. We're used to building aircraft like this with the fuselage halves that snap together. Italeri is going with a 3-part fuselage here, which is pretty ballsy. We'll see in a little bit whether or not they can actually pull it off. There are also, if you look around, several smaller parts, but mostly this sprue is concerned with that lower fuselage and with the ATAR 9B engine. So as with the 104, Italeri gives you the option to put the engine on a trolley, and as such, they put some effort into the engine. Of course, two nicely detailed engine halves glued together equal a big long tube that you have to clean up while trying to avoid destroying all that detail. So moving on to SPRUE C, this one is mostly taken up by the wings and various things that go into and onto them. The detail here is definitely crisper than their 104, but still not a match for, say, what Tamiya is molding these days. So SPRUE D is the typical weapons sprue, and with this kit you get 2 of them. Some space is given over to the main wheels and parts of the engine trolley, but honestly, this is all about the stuff that hangs off of the Mirage 3's pylons. So what do you get here? You get 2 AIM-9B sidewinders. You get 2 Matra R550 Magics, and 2 of the big and supposedly terrible Matra R530s. Though notably, this gigantic missile was only carried on the center pylon, so you really only need one, so congratulations. If you buy this kit, you get an extra to do with what you will. Also included, a bit randomly, are 2 JL100Rs. These are crazy. They're rocket pod fuel tank hybrids, which to me seems like a really bad idea. Rounding out these 2 sprue are 2 different flavors of fuel tanks. So you've got a 500 liter supersonic tanks, or the larger 1300 liter RP62s, which also have these really cool fins hanging off of them. So while it's going somewhat out of order, this also seems like a really great place to stop and to mention Italeri's attention to painting and stenciling these various armaments and their pylons. This goes far beyond just the minimum level of effort. Italeri has actually provided extensive stencils on the decal sheets, as well as 3 full pages of color painting guides for the missiles, the tanks, and the pylons. So next we've got the clear sprue that contains the usual clear things. And it looks good. You know, nothing really worth gushing over here, but nothing troublesome, no foggy canopies, no super thick glass, whatever. It's plastic, it's clear. Woohoo! In addition to the plastic, there's also a small photo etch fret to be found in the box. And it looks fine. You know, the seatbelts are fine, they have nice relief detail on them. Overall, though, this is just pretty standard fare. It's a little piece of brass that you get to cut apart and probably swear at some point during the build. So, what's there to say about the instructions? They're instructions. They're pretty well detailed. They don't seem to miss anything obvious, but I'm sure that, you know, somebody will find something that's been overlooked when they actually get into building it. So one of the more interesting things about the Mirage III is the amount of different schemes that it wore. I mean, it's served with basically every Air Force in the world, it feels like. Italeri obviously recognizes this, and that's why they go in for not just 1 or 2, but for 6 scheme options. So you've got 3 French, you've got the cool Djibouti desert camouflage one, you've got a bare metal one, and you've got one in that blue-grayish color that the French seem to like so much. And then you've got a South African 3CZ in their brown and green camo, and you've got a bare metal Swiss number, and you have a bare metal Israeli 3CJ. Each of these is really well covered with 4-view full color profiles. There's also a separate sheet that they toss in for all of the stencils, and it's a modern, i.e. post-World War II aircraft, therefore stencils for miles. So like Academy, Italeri has really done an about-face in the last few years when it comes to decals. As with the 104, the Mirage IIIC benefits from this new focus, with not terrible decals on 2 huge, just absolutely gorgeous decal sheets. In addition to the usual markings for the 6 schemes, these sheets are also packed with crisp, gorgeous stencils. And while I don't see a printed by cartograph anywhere on these sheets, they definitely look of that quality. So, this kit looks impressive enough on the sprues, but it's an Italeri, so when it comes to fit, suspicion is pretty much warranted until proven otherwise. You know, especially when you look at the separate wings, the full-length underside, the way the tail is engineered. In my opinion, all of this is at least a cause for concern. You know, they're also, unfortunately, really difficult to address in a test fit. This is just like the F-104, and I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record about the damn F-104, but the Mirage is engineered so that these internal elements help force the larger parts into the right positions for proper alignment. So, for example, the intake trunks mount to an internal crossmember, and that helps locate the fuselage halves. So, you know, the gear bays spread the wing roots so that they properly seat into the fuselage. This sort of stuff. Without building the kit properly, it's really hard to ensure that these bits all do their job. But even just doing a quick tape job like I normally do for these kind of reviews, I was able to at least confirm that the fuselage fits together more or less the right way. You know, even including the aft exhaust shroud and the tail. The division of the tail is interesting. I mean, to me, this decision to split the tail right where it goes off in its little fillet there is all but confirmation that Italeri thinking about additional variants. You know, the Mirage IIIE has a pretty much a straight up triangle tail, but there is another variant with another crooked tail like this that does have a different feature up front, and that is the Kafir. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Kafir / F-21 variant of this coming along sometime soon. Now, the tail fit isn't bad per se, but in my opinion, it's pretty poorly thought out and rather fussy. It just plugs into this gaping hole, this giant ass hole right in the back of the jet. Some sort of recessed area, some locator pin, anything, to me, it feels would have been a bit stronger here in terms of ensuring the right fit. One part that I'm unable to really test at all is the wings. The wings themselves, they go together wonderfully. There's a nice almost snap together authority with their locating pins. And I've tested that the wing roots do fit nicely individually. The problem is that the gear bays are absolutely necessary to spread them enough to fit the fuselage the right way. The nose is also, I mean, frankly, the nose is troublesome. I suspect that maybe the inside of the mounting ring needs to be thinned or something, but it's really tough to force that 3-part fuselage thing onto this nose when the tolerances are so tight. So it's tough to tell without the cockpit and the nose gear and the various bulkheads in there to stiffen things up. Italeri shocked a lot of people with the F-104, and I think it's fair to say they're doing so again with the Mirage IIIC. And by nearly every measure, it seems like a step up from the 104 in terms of detail and quality. Now, what was vague on the Starfighter is crisp here. The cockpit, the gear bays, the IP combing, all of those things are a little bit sharper. And what worked with the 104, so here's a bunch of schemes, go to town, the voluminous decal sheets, the structurally integrated fit thing they've got going on, all of that's carried over. It does, however, remain to be seen how well the overall aircraft comes together once all those internal structures are in place. For that reason, while this is undoubtedly the best Mirage 3 of any type, in any scale, I'm hesitant to give it the old highly recommended. So I'm going to say highly recommended if it fits. Thank you for listening to this review. This Italeri Mirage IIIC was purchased by my own cash money, so I can say whatever the hell I want about it. And yes, that's about it. Thank you for listening. Comments, etc. as usual. Adios. The detail here is good. It's definitely finer and crisper than their 104, but it's still not, really a match for the fucking Dachshunds. Can you stop walking around for 2 seconds, please?